joining us today at the Riverton United Methodist Church. It's a beautiful Sunday. It's a beautiful Father's Day. So congratulations and welcome to our church. Hope everybody has a wonderful Father's Day today. Obviously it's a little unusual as we don't have a minister yet, but in a church we do have a big announcement. And we have a guest today. So we are going to start with the opening prayer. Lord, we have come this day seeking your presence in healing love. Be with us as we hear your words of hope and compassion. Give us courage to learn and grow, that we might serve you faithfully all of days. Amen. And we have an opening hymn, A Mighty Fortress of Our God, by Lisa today. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Carolyn. We're not going to do children's time today because we don't have any children here today. Is there any birthdays or anniversaries that we need to uplift today? Anybody have any announcements?
Sal's birthday is on the 23rd.
Hal's birthday is on the 23rd. All right. We're going to have cake celebration? No? All right. Any anniversaries? Surely there's an anniversary out there close by. No? All right. Okay. So, here. Lord's Prayer. Lord of wind and water, of calmness and peace, be with us this day. Calm our fears as we face uncertain futures. Help us to relinquish control and to place our trust totally in you. Remind us to continue to faithfully work for good with gratitude for the many blessings you have poured upon us. When the waves and the torrents threaten us, let us again to turn to you, remembering your saving mercies and love. Give us courage to become disciples who can calm the seas of doubt and anger, bringing hope and peace. As we have brought before you situations that require help and healing mercies, remind us again that you are with each person and situation, offering your love and mercy. We thank you for the many ways in which you have healed us, for all the goodness you have poured upon us. We offer prayers of gratitude and love as we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. It's time for prayers. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed by thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespass, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Okay. And now we have a special music offering by Carolyn. Thank you, Carolyn. As you know, we usually pass around the offering plate, but we don't have that right now. So we have baskets out in the entry there for that. And I believe numerous places to drop that off. And something else that I forgot to mention earlier is Debbie wanted me to bring up that we have the bake sale this Saturday. Where is Debbie? Is that this Friday or the Saturday? This coming?
Setting up Friday and we're doing it Saturday.
Okay, so set up Friday, and she's looking for volunteers, I believe.
We'll take anything,
Anybody, anywhere, anyhow, to come set up. What time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay. And the sale starts on Saturday at what time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay. All right. Next is Doug Newland. He is going to be doing our reading today. Come on up, Doug.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hear these words from the book of the Gospel of Mark, 4th chapter, verse 35 through 41. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with them. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Be still, peace." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" These are the words of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks, Doug. Next, we have a very special guest, John Hallcroft from the Basin Church. So please welcome him. Come on up, John.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I know when I called the church day before yesterday, well, first I saw Ken and Amanda at Circle J. It's probably been a month or two ago. And we set the date for me to come down and to speak about Circle J. But what I forgot was that Ken and Amanda weren't going to be here. So I got a little surprised when I called the church. I spoke with Carolyn and found out they had already gone, even though I knew that they were leaving the church. But I wasn't that prepared for that announcement. I thought they would be here, but that's good. I understand their things are going well for them, and you're looking for a new minister. We'll have one. Basin Church went through that many times, so I'm very familiar with what happens that you have to do. And I'd like to start with, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help. And thank you for always being here for us. So, when's the last time you've been to Circle J? Do most of you know where Circle J is? So, don't be afraid to speak up. This is very informal today because I'm kind of the circuit rider for Circle J. I'm on the board of trustees, and I volunteered to contact the churches to get them back involved in Circle J like it used to be years ago when I was a child, when I went to Circle J. So that's what this meeting is all about. And I need to preface this right now with, it looks like I'm here strictly for your money with the brochure that was handed out. I didn't know that we had two different brochures. I know we had one for the endowment fund, but we had another one strictly about Circle J. So you got the endowment fund. We'll talk about that a little later on. But I don't have a brochure about Circle J and its activities. Like I said, the main purpose of this today is to just let you know that Circle J is back. And the reason why I say that is because in my speaking, I've been finding out that a lot of people haven't heard a lot about Circle J in the last few years. In fact, a couple people asked me, they said, well, you know, Circle J was going strong for a while, and then all of a sudden it just dropped away. Nobody knew what happened to it. So, I want you to know today that Circle J is back. And of course, we really didn't go anywhere, but we just had to make some changes. Does anyone know what the J stands for in the circle of Circle J? I see a hand. So, like I said, don't be shy. If you want to say something or contribute, just raise your hand or stand up and we'll be glad to let you talk. Okay, the circle represents the brotherhood of man, and centered by the J, which stands for Jesus. Circle J was founded and formed for a spiritual retreat facility with Jesus as the center. And the main purpose when Circle J was formed was to be faith-based and a youth camp. Those were the two main goals of Circle J. And that is still our goal today. We're trying to get the youth back into the church, and we're trying to get the church back into Circle J. So, now we have a brief history of Circle J. Do any of you have been involved in Circle J over the last several years? I would imagine. See a hand. Don't be shy. So, which is good. It was purchased back in October of 1953 from the Thurston Doyle family, and they bought it for $20,000. Lynn Doyle, the grandson of Thurston Doyle, maybe you don't know, lives in Hyattville. So I was talking to him a little before I came down about the ranch. I didn't know if he'd been in the family a long time, but coming to find out the family had owned it for 10 years, and they just decided to sell it. In fact, I didn't know this, but if you're familiar with Circle J, the lodge, the kitchen area, that was part of the main house, and I didn't know that. So part of the house is still there at Circle J. Anyway, as you know, it's located about 7 miles out of Tinsley, and we have the Tinsley Creek is running through the property, which gives Circle J the first rights on the water rights. A lot of people don't know that. The reason why they bought this property, this happened over several years. It really started with some board members and churches really centered around the world and Tinsley. But they wanted to get away from meeting at Meadowlark Lake. That was before my time. I didn't go to Meadowlark Lake, but that's where the Methodist church camp used to be. I see a head shaking yes, so they know. But they wanted to have their own camp. So that would be, so they could really exercise the faith-based, the belief in Jesus Christ, and focus on the youth. So when this opportunity came up at the selling of the ranch, the Methodist Church moved on it immediately. It took several years for them to develop the property, and because, as you know, there's always a money problem, and they had to raise funds. And if you don't know, I'll refresh your memory. Circle J Camp is really based on its functioning through donations and volunteer work. That's what keeps the Circle J moving. So it took them several years to get the funds together, but they did get the funds together, and they built the camp pretty much as it is today. But it took a lot of dedication, and members of the ministers and the volunteers, and this was their dream, was to get a spiritual retreat facility that they owned. And so they did that, and they managed to get away from Meadowlark Lake. And I was debating this with myself. I lose a lot of conversation with myself when I talk about things. So anyway, you might be asking yourself, why should I be interested in Circle J? Why should I go to Circle J? Besides the volunteer and the funding. But there's just a lot to do at Circle J. I don't know when's the last time any of you have been to Circle J. I know it's quite a drive from here, but it's well worth the drive. So when you get to Circle J, if you're wondering what things are to do, first of all, Circle J, and this surprised me, I didn't know about it, but Circle J is 200 acres. And it doesn't look like that when you pull into Circle J because it sits right on the river. But you know, you have the mountainside and up the creek, so to speak. And so they have a lot of acreage there. Plus they have the orchard, which has been there for well over 100 years. So they have quite a bit of property. So this gives you an opportunity to do several things. If you like to hike, and there are plenty of hiking trails. And if you remember, across the highway up on the bluff, they have the cross, which I actually hiked up to it a few weeks ago. It wasn't as easy as it was 50 years ago. But the cross is still there. There's a fantastic view when you get up there. So there's plenty of hiking, and I'm sure a lot of you like to fish, and there's plenty of good fishing there also. And then we have, as you know, we have a large open meadow, which is used for volleyball, horseshoes, and for picnics. And believe it or not, they still allow campfires. We can still do campfires at Circle J. And there's a chance of bird watching and photography. That is very prevalent. Or if you don't want to do anything, just find a place to sit down and contemplate the universe or draw closer to God. It's just a beautiful, fantastic piece of property. And of course, one of the main events which will be coming up this fall is Apple Fest. And a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know, that besides the apples, they have pears. They have huge pears. I think the pears are better than the apples. But anyway, they have a great crop of pears also. But Circle J takes I should say a lot of work. It needs a lot of tender loving care. And like I said earlier, it's all volunteers. Everybody on the board, we're all volunteers. There are only 2 people that are associated with Circle J right now that are paid. And one of them is the caretaker, the groundskeeper, which we just hired one yesterday, another one because the other caretaker was transferred. And yesterday we also, by the way, we had a meeting yesterday. And yesterday we also interviewed a young lady to be the manager of the property, which would put a face to Circle J and get everything centralized at Circle J. Right now, the board, we are doing everything that Circle J requires. And it's quite a bit of work, to be honest with you. So we're trying to pull it back together. But the main thought behind, we had this long discussion yesterday about we want to get the youth back to Circle J. And what we did yesterday, it was suggested, when I was growing up, the Circle J had certain dates for camps, for the elementary camp and for the youth camp. And that went by the wayside. We are getting back to set dates now. For example, the elementary is going to be June 23 through the 26th. Of course, this will change with the years, of course. And the youth camp will be July 21st through 24th. And we're starting out with fewer days, and then hopefully build back up to more days. When I went to camp, I know we were there probably for 5 days. So there was just a lot to do with the activities. But we're trying to get the youth back, and we can't, my opinion is, to get the youth back into going to Circle J, we need to go through the churches. And I know a lot of the churches, the youth groups are smaller now, but there are still youth that are interested. We organized a little late this year, that's why the youth camp isn't really functioning this year. But next year it's going to be a different story because the advertising, we're going to start pushing the youth groups. And besides the youth groups, a lot of people don't know, and I found out a lot of ministers didn't know, that, by the way, I have spoken at several churches anyway, so I get a lot of feedback, that there's always a question of money to send the students. And there are scholarships available through the conference and also through churches. When I went to church camp, I remember we never paid for our camp. There was the Women's Society or some group in the church or the church itself sponsored us. So there were always sponsors to pay for the fee to go to camp. So there's always a way to get the youth to camp, but we need to get the churches back involved again so we can get this going. And like I said, that's the main purpose of me being here today. The other reason is that years ago, and I even remember this, there used to be a representative from every church on the board. And we would like to get back to that. So, of course, technology has changed everything. You don't necessarily have to attend the meetings in person. For example, yesterday there were a handful of us there, but most people were on the phone. So there's a way to be a representative of your church. This way you'll have a say in what's happening in Circle J and what can be done or what needs to be done or what shouldn't be done. But we are really stressing, when I say we, the board, they would really like to have representatives from all the churches back on the board. A lot of people, and I didn't know this until I got involved. I've only been on the board for about a year. But do you know that Circle J is the only Methodist church camp in the state of Wyoming? It's the only one. So all Methodist churches in the state of Wyoming more or less belong, or if you use the word all, Circle J. And a lot of the churches were aware of that. So that's another reason why to support Circle J. To go through the churches and to get everyone back involved. And of course, the real main situation is volunteers. We never have enough volunteers. I know a lot of us are the overcrowd, so, but there's always a need for something to be done at Circle J. For example, if we get the youth back involved, it has to be staffed. And, we have to have cooks, and we have to have sponsorship, and we have to have adults there. So all of this needs to be done, and it's all volunteer. No one is paid. So your time is more important than the money for volunteering in Circle J. And that's really what's keeping the camp going. It is the volunteer work. And you had great representation here with Amanda and Ken. And of course, Amanda's still on board, even though, in fact, she was on the phone yesterday. She's still involved with Circle J. So you had great representation here. But we still need more. We just need to hear your voice, what you think, and which direction that Circle J could go or should go. Because since it's faith-based and really dedicated to the youth, we had a discussion about what we're going to do in the future. I mean, we've got to keep it faith-based and at the same time cater to the youth. And everything is changing so rapidly anymore. I mean, do we open it up to everybody, or do we just keep it a spiritual experience? And that was quite a question. Because right now, as you know, you probably don't know, that you can do most anything. If you have a reunion, anniversary, or anything along these lines, you can have it at Circle J. Of course, you have to call and make a reservation. And this year we're having a good year because we got the word out, and we had several weddings and reunions. Of course, they require work. Volunteers need to be there to, even though everyone's supposed to clean up after themselves and watch themselves, everything, we have to go in after everybody and do the work. So there's always something to be done. We never run out of time for and the need for volunteers. And then we have work camps and like I said, reunions, and we have the weddings. Practically anything that you can think of, you can hold at Circle J. Besides that, it's just fantastic. It's just a fantastic program. If you haven't been there, I know it's a drive from here, but you need to take the time sometime and go. I like in Basin, we're closer, but I can still use it for an example. We decided to take the congregation to Circle J for the Sunday church service. So we got everybody loaded in cars. We all drove to Circle J. We had our church service at Circle J. We had a lunch. We took our food with us. And then we had an offering, and then we gave the offering. We donated it to Circle J. Things like we stayed up there for the day. And it's nice to do. They get you out of your church for one thing, and get you moving around, and you get to see what Circle J is really all about. So that's important. I know when I was at Circle J, we had several things. Everything was structured to a certain extent. We had free time. Of course, we had Bible study, we had crafts, and hiking, we had fishing. Well, my favorite time actually was the campfire at night. That was the fellowship. Everybody was there. And I remember that not everybody was a Methodist even back in those days. If you had a friend that you wanted to bring with you, you brought your friend with you. And it was just fantastic at campfires. And I even went back and found, believe it or not, the old songbook that we used to use at Circle J. over 50 years ago. And we sang the songs out of this for our worship service, before breakfast, and before our meals, and used this at campfire time. And we were accompanied by guitars. And of course, we also used campfire for marshmallows and hot dogs. But it was just something about a campfire, and everybody is there, and that's in surrounding, that is just so spiritual. So I dropped this on Karen here at the last minute, because one of my favorite songs was The Ash Grove, and I'm sure a lot of you remember it. And she's going to play it for us today. Always sang this at the campfire time. Always did. So, thank you. Let me drop that on you. So, anyway. And then the other thing I remember, I shouldn't tell you this, but of course the NYF groups were going at that time. And there were more youth at that time. And at camp, we all had duties we had to do. We divide up, we had to clean the hall, we had to set the table up, and we had to do the dishes. We had to do the kitchen. And there was a song that we used to sing. I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to repeat the words. That we did it all, every time we had to do the KP word. It said, we wash for you, we dry for you, the NYF dish washing crew. We try our best to clean the mess, the NYF dish washing crew. We take a pan made of tin and throw the soap and water in. We wash for you, we dry for you, the NYF dishwashing crew. I remember that from 50 years ago. But we had a lot of dishes to do, so maybe that's why I remember. But these are, good recollections of Circle J. But it all comes back down to donations and volunteer work. That's what it's all about. And the brochure that you have, we just added this, the board just added this year to remember Circle J and the Endowment Fund. Some people are doing that, and it's a great investment. It helps keep Circle J going. We are in better shape today than we have been in quite some time. But it always takes, more and more money to keep things running nowadays. So we would like you to definitely think about that. It's a great investment. We also have a thumb drive. Amanda was kind enough, I asked for a thumb drive of Circle J. This is going to replace the pamphlet you didn't get today, because it's a video of Circle J. And she did put this together for me, because I wanted to do this and to show it to you. And right along with the endowment fund, which churches used to do, they used to have a line item in their budgets for Circle J. And we would like the churches to go back to thinking about that when they do their budgets, to put a line item in for Circle J. I know in Basin, we have started that again. We did that a year ago. So, and it does help. It's just something that we're going to do every year. And all the churches used to do that, but they got away from it. So we want to get back into some of the old habits, which were good. And that is one of it. And yeah, we have an upcoming event which is always chancy. It's called Apple Fest, which I mentioned briefly, because it all depends on the weather and the crop that we have as far as the apples and the peaches are concerned, and the pears are concerned. And that takes a lot of work because we have food, we have booths, we have music, and we have everything except last year we didn't have the people because it stormed. And we didn't have the crop. So it didn't go over very well last year. But when we do have it, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of volunteer work to pull off. But it's very, very successful when it happens. We do sell the apples, and we sell the pears, and it all goes right back into Circle J. So all of this is extremely important to the preservation of Circle J. Does anyone have anything you want to add or say? Or yes.
What kind of housing do you have?
I knew you were going to. I was getting ready to mention that. Of course, we had the boys and the girls dorms, and I believe all together you can sleep about 65 together. But it's dorm style. But the other thing on the upside, which the Circle J has done, we do have RV hookups for RVs. I think we have about 9 of those. And they're free. You aren't charged for power or anything like that. So we do have that. I know it's a good question about the housing because this is kind of common. I probably shouldn't be repeating this, but anyway, we thought, well, why don't we have a minister's retreat at Circle J? Well, we get all the ministers from all the Methodist churches from Wyoming come to Circle J for a retreat. And, I probably shouldn't say it, but anyway, I'm going to anyway. I heard a minister say to me, she says, well, I don't want to sleep with other ministers. I thought, well, you want the youth to share bunkhouse or whatever, but the ministers don't want to do it. Anyway, that was just one minister. Anyway. But that's the housing that we do have. And a lot of people who are interested in the RVs, because a lot of people have RVs now, they just rent them. So we do have that. And of course, we have a lodge with a kitchen. So that's certainly not a problem. So I have a member of our church in Basin who's going to, he's an expert with apple trees, and some of the apple trees are over 100 years old and they're starting to die. But he's going to come up, he has a camper, he's going to bring an RV, he's going to bring his RV up and just hook up and stay up there for several days, and just working in the orchard. So, and people are welcome to do that. The only drawback is that if you want to come to Circle J, you need to call and make a reservation. That way, we know you're coming, and it's not interfering with anything or anything else. Right now, the weekends are taken, it's my understanding. But during the week is not a problem. Yes?
We need to give kudos to the nomads. They've done a lot of construction up there.
I'm going to come down because I have a hearing problem. So,
I do.
Yes.
I said we need to give kudos to the nomads.
Oh, yes.
They have done a lot of construction.
And I'm glad you brought that up because we just scheduled them again for next year. And then there happens to be a group of volunteers that come to Circle J every year and work on the property. They stay, they bring their RVs, and then some of them stay in the dorms. And they're going to be there 2 separate weeks. And one of the plans that we have so far is that Ramsey Hall, which is the girls' dorm, is going to need some work on it. But so does the lodge. The foundation has some problems. So that's going to be their project for this coming year. They're going to work on those 2 big projects. And for Circle J, we furnish the supplies for them. But the nomads, like she said, they're a fantastic group. In fact, even last week, we had the St. Andrews youth group at Circle J, and they're putting a new highway in, so fencing had to be taken down, a new fencing put up. The highway furnished all of that. But the youth group put up that new fence. They were up there for about a week. So we have youth groups that do come up, and we put them to work. But that's part of the process. They come up and help out with Circle J, and besides that, they have a good time. So we're always using youth groups and the nomads. The nomads are just fantastic. So they've been doing this for a few years, and they're back next year. We've already given them the schedule and whatnot. So we probably couldn't survive a lot without them, because they do a lot of the hard work that would cost a lot of money. So this is where all this volunteer help comes in handy. I know we have several members in our church. They're retired from their work, but there's always something at Circle J that needs to be done. Like we have an electrician from Moreland, actually. He does all our electrical work for us. We furnish the supplies. He comes up and takes care of the problem for us. So there's always a demand. I know we think that as we get older that we're not very useful, but if you come to Circle J, you're going to find out that that's different. I mean, we don't work it to death, but there are just a lot of things that always need to be done, and we cover it with volunteer work. Anyone else? Oh, yes. You're gonna have to repeat that. I'll come back.
What are the months that you're in operation? And also, do you have like months where you're supposed to do what you think about volunteer and
I would say at a certain time, people come up but if you have a group that comes, organize a group of friends that come up, all you have to do is make a phone call and let us know what you're doing, and let us know we have a lot of this thing that always needs to well, yes, she's asking if we're closed during the winter months, and the answer to that was yes, because we didn't have a manager on site, so they actually locked the gate during the winter time. But we have another meeting this coming Wednesday with the board, and if we go ahead and hire the manager, we're going to keep it open year-round, because there's always something that needs to be done. But one thing that we found that we have to be careful about are just people stopping in off the highway all the time. You know, they might want to look around, or the big routine is that they want to use the restrooms. So, of course, that means cleaning and whatever. So we haven't solved that problem yet. But I do know it was definitely discussed that if we get the manager on board, that we will be open. There will be somebody there year-round. Yes.
Who do we contact to take part in this endeavor?
If you, see, that's where
Are you going to leave an address and a phone number?
yes, there's a website. So
I don't have any website.
Okay. Here's the brochure that you should have had. So, actually, you should have had both brochures, and I didn't know. That was my surprise today.
I have
So
a brochure.
that gives you the phone number, and the website, and Facebook. It's all on there. Of course, it doesn't help you any because you don't have that brochure. So that was my surprise. But we do have, on the back of the one you got today, you have to contact us. You do have the phone number in Tennessee. Yes.
How about the accessibility? Is it accessible to motorhomes and such?
As far as RVs? Yes.
RVs, motorhomes?
Yes, that's not a problem. Like I mentioned, we have 9 hookups now.
7 miles?
Not, pardon me?
7 miles from Tinsley?
7 miles out of Tennessee. You can't miss it. It's on the right-hand side. Just before you start to climb up the mountain, Circle J is right there.
2-hour drive.
At the base of the switch bar, when you start up the mountain. You can't miss this because you're going to see the chapel right away from the highway. By the way, the chapel was the old Methodist church from Tinsley.
I didn't hear where you said you turn off at Tinsley.
That's okay. It probably wasn't worth hearing anyway. And so you will see the chapel from the highway.
Oh,
The Circle J is on the right-hand side, and the entryway is right past the chapel.
is this right in Tinsley?
So, pardon me?
Is it right in Tinsley?
No,
The turn?
no. It's you have to go about 7 miles out of Tinsley before you hit Circle J. So,
It's gone to the switchbacks too far.
She said if you get to the switchbacks, you've gone too far.
that's right. If you start up the mountain, you've gone too far. So, but you really can't miss Circle J because of the chapel. The chapel practically sits right on the highway. So, and then the entryway is right past the chapel. And then
Before you get to Tinsley or after you go through Tinsley?
it's after you go through Tinsley. You have to go through Tinsley,
And go 7 miles on
7
the highway?
miles. Well, that's about 6 to 7 miles.
On the highway,
It's on the highway.
then you turn
And
around.
there's a big sign that says Circle J, but you're going to see the chapel.
That's what I want.
So, and the accessibility for RVs is not a problem. You have a lot of space.
How far is it off the highway then?
It isn't. It's right on the
It's on the highway.
We're on the highway. We're not off the highway at all. We're literally on the highway.
Thank you.
The camp is further down, but you'll see the camp.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hope to see you there.
I hope.
If not, we know you went up the switchbacks and you went too far.
It sounds like my kind of thing to do.
Well, this would be a great thing for you to do. You will enjoy Circle J. Anything else? I know this has been informal today, but that's what it was all about, to bring you up to date and let you know what was happening with Circle J. Okay, Jesus is the center of all Christian life, and Jesus is the center of Circle J. He is the light of the world and the way to the way. Please, won't you join with us by pledging your support and sustaining fellowship. Let your light so shine that others may be able to see. To me and a lot of other people that Circle J Ranch is a little bit of heaven on earth. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
J dozens of times, and I've never stopped, and it is absolutely beautiful. And Tennessee was just beautiful. And a good time to go is they have a festival in Tennessee, middle of August. And so you can hit the little music festival, go up there and check out Circle J. They also have places to stay up at Meadowlark, which is just, would you say, another 10 miles past Circle J? Yeah, maybe. So 10 miles or so past Circle J, there's additional cabins and places to stay and things to see. So try to participate in that and go check it out. I think before we do the closing thing, should I read the letter? Or do you want to do the closing thing? Okay. Well, before we do the closing part, we're going to read a letter that I was asked to read to the congregation. So, here it goes. This is from Reverend Mark Calhoun. Greetings in the name of the one who guides us and calls to love one another. I am writing to share with you that, after consultation with the Mountain Sky Conference Cabinet and members of the Staff Parish Committee and the Administrative Council of your congregation, Bishop Karen P. Olipto intends to appoint Reverend Bun Ku Lee as the next pastor of Riverton United Methodist Church in Riverton, Wyoming, effective July 1, 2021. Please pray for God to bless this welcoming of Reverend Bunku and his family. May this time of transition bring gifts of grace to all involved. It has been a great blessing to work with you, with your leadership team throughout this sacred endeavor. During this time of transition, I pray God's blessings on your congregation, on Reverend Bunku and his wife Queen Sun, and their children, He Lin and He Yell, as we embark on a new season of pastoral leadership in the life of your church. I lift prayers of gratitude for Pastor Ken and his beloved family for their continued commitment and dedication to God's kingdom, to the beautiful people of Riverton, and to this beloved congregation. Thank you for your intentional and gracious celebration of this time that Pastor Ken, Amanda, and Grace shared with your church. May the Holy Spirit enlive in you all of your growth and disciples of Jesus Christ through this deepened faith, enhanced congregational vitality, and the missional presence in your community. Grace and peace, Reverend Mark Calhoun. It's been a process, to say the least, to do this. This has not been passive. This has been worked on very hard. I will tell you that Mark has no rest. I had countless texts from him at 6:30 in the morning, usually, starting on questions and things that we met. Brian, Debbie, Marcia, Betty, a lot of us, we've met and spent hours talking. I was a little naive to the process. As you all know, this is all new for me. I just assumed when this time comes, we would just call it Mark and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, kind of like order pizza. You know, we want this, we want this, we want this in our minister. Well, it turns out that there's not many choices for us out there, and I think we've been very lucky to get Reverend Bunku. I have met him and his family. They shared an evening with us here last week. I have watched a sermon that he's given. I found him very pleasant and knowledgeable. He's going to be very hardworking. I think you'll see that will be running normal office hours and will be accessible to the members. He speaks good English. There will be times where a few words you'll probably strain, but just make you listen harder. So I think with that, so after church, I'm going to stick around. Debbie has brought donuts and stuff, so you're welcome to stick around and ask me questions. Ask the other.
Brought the holes, not the whole donut.
Just the donut holes. So, with that, I think it would be time for our closing hymn, When the Storms of Life Are Raging. As the Lord has given to you such peace and healing, now go into the world offering God's love and hope to others. Go in peace and remember that God goes with you. Amen. Thank you.